Hi everyone, I'm Eric Samuel Green and welcome to Style Made Simple. This is where we give you access to leaders and influencers who are knowledgeable about style and design. It's also where we give you access to new trends and new information. And I'm so excited today to welcome Eric Ruben, who is president of the Ruben Agency, and he also happens to be a literary agent. So welcome, Eric.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So the literary world is so rich with dynamic writers and storytellers. And what I love about that world is that when you add words to images, it creates this amazing narrative that can last for a lifetime. So tell us how you got into the world and what are some of the authors that you really love?
Well, I got to be a literary agent quite by accident. I went to high school with a woman who was my best friend named Suzanne Brockman. She became a romance writer. And while she was having success, she wanted to create a series of books. And she didn't want to do a series that was like any other series where people come and go out of the town or there's a bunch of brothers. And she was looking for what we would call a hook, something that would put the series together. I happened to be reading an old Newsweek magazine when I was at the dentist, and it had an article on Navy SEAL training. And I thought, oh my God, these guys are heroes. They work in teams. You could have books that join together with all these different heroes. And I pitched that idea to her, and the next thing you know, it ended up being a multi-million-dollar, very successful idea. She became a New York Times bestselling author. I ended up, at the time, I was a lawyer. I quit my job at a big law firm. I ended up working for her. I got to literally travel across the country. I think I've been to 45 of the 50 states. I met all sorts of people in publishing, and then I got approached by a lot of people who wanted me to be their agent. And I thought, I don't know anything about agenting. I just kind of got to meet people, use my legal skills, and then basically someone persuaded me to do it. And I discovered that I could do it, and that was several years ago. And I'd always been a reader, obviously. I mean, you don't get to go through college and law school without reading. But the kind of things that I represent are what we'd call genre fiction. In other words, they're not very I don't know if they'll be teaching these books. Maybe they will be, but I don't know if they'll be teaching them in a century. But they're what we would call entertainment, which is important, in my opinion, especially today. Yep. So things like horror, romance, mystery, and there are very good people doing very good work in these genre fictions. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. What I love is it sounds like you have a colorful imagination. That's how you actually got into this business. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always loved pop culture in every aspect, whether it's style or television or film. I think that, and when I was in high school, I took several courses in what was called humanities, which didn't have history or literature or music as its own thing. They all were intertwined. So you got to see the literature and the politics and the style of those eras, and they all worked together. It's like a seamless web of interaction. Yeah. And I found that fascinating and still do.
Yeah, that layering is essential in all good storytelling, whether it's interiors, whether it's fashion design, or whether it's in the publishing world. So the mix of all of it together is something that's really important.
That's true. I'm sorry. I don't know if that made a sound where you are, but my email went across, so I immediately shut it off. I apologize.
No, actually didn't hear anything. It's all good.
Oh, good. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I hadn't thought of interior design being storytelling, but it absolutely is. I mean, I've been to the Metropolitan Museum a lot. I'm a member. And there's amazing interior design exhibits there, and they do tell a story, and they talk about the people of that time.
Absolutely.
I really get it, yeah.
So I would consider you an artist, being that you are a creator.
Can I just use that now? Throw that on my card?
You can use it. I've stamped you with that approval.
Awesome. Thank you.
What inspires you?
Wow. I think that being in the moment as it's happening is inspiring. People inspire me. Mm-hmm. I think that courage and love and simple things inspire me. The first thought I had is like my cat lying on top of me is lovely. I have a cat named Cleo that my wife and I have. But also people with a sense of purpose and passion inspire me, my friends. And then, great artists, whether they're painters or writers who speak to us from hundreds of years ago to this day. So if I pick up a book from somebody who wrote in the 1800s, they inspire me. Because, Dickens is still very much with us, as long as you pick up the book.
As long as you pick up the book. And what's interesting about that is that you work in fiction, but what you really love and what inspires you is authenticity and real narratives and things that are tangible and things that are based with a sense of honesty to it.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I think that fiction is based on reality. I mean, real people make fiction. So it's got to come from somewhere. Yeah.
So in terms of, I'm sorry?
We're getting heavy now.
We're getting heavy. I'm going to bring it back to design and style, because I do think that there's a connection between the two. So in terms of book design and in the world of fiction, how important is what the actual book looks like to the success of it?
Well, there are going to be a lot of different opinions. I'll tell you the reality is that years ago, when there were many more bookstores, I'll use the bookstore Borders because it doesn't exist anymore. I remember the first time I learned this, I was stunned. But there were buyers. For instance, there was a romance buyer who bought all of the romance books for Borders across the United States. And the major publishers would show that buyer what the covers were for the books. And if they didn't like it, the publisher would change the cover. So I think that tells you it's very important, and there are decision makers that most people don't even know exist. So I'd say now that has become less important when people buy ebooks, because much like, when I was a kid, we had record albums, and they were these vinyl things, and they were rather large. And when you picked up this album, the artwork was substantial. Now you pick up a CD, and the artwork is much smaller, and it becomes less important. I would say there's usually just a picture of a person rather than some elaborate piece of art. I think that we've gotten to that with books because so many people buy them off the internet or download them. But if I'm walking through a bookstore, for me, I love to see what a book jacket looks like and hope that it's interesting. And frankly, I have bought books based solely on the cover. Yeah, I'm not the only one. People do that.
So you can judge a book by its cover.
Well, I don't know if you can judge it. You'll buy a book by its cover.
You can buy a book.
Right. I don't know if I've ever bought a book where I loved the cover and then it turned out I didn't like the book. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that. But I would say that it's important. But, you know better than anybody else. Design is very important. Food packaging.
Absolutely.
Political packaging.
Absolutely. Visuals are so important to the customer experience. It's equally as important as the content. It's part of the overall experience. So are there specific colors that do better in the publishing world?
I have no idea. I can only tell you my favorite color is green, but it's not because I'm an agent. I have no idea. I'm sure there are people who could answer that. I have no idea.
What about in terms of imagery on a book jacket? So does photography work better, or does illustrations work better, or just type only, like graphic design?
I think it depends on the genre. For instance, I can tell you that there are trends and fads almost. There was a time when if you had a romantic suspense book, you would have a guy looking in a direction, maybe holding a gun. Then suddenly you had two people running. Then sometimes you had two people running holding hands. And it was everybody who did romantic suspense. Or there would be a boat, even if there was no boat in the book. What happens is there's lots of people who get in a room and have big discussions about this stuff, I don't know if they actually know what they're talking about or not, but they make a decision and people run with it. I suppose just like network executives.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's interesting. So there are these magicians behind the curtain actually pulling strings. So is that done from a advertising agency? Is it done more from a publishing house, or is it more the writer's management? These group of influencers, or all of the above?
In the specific case of the books, it's absolutely the publishers. Very few writers get to the point where they have input on the actual book cover. For instance, what will happen is a lot of authors will get what's called a art instruction sheet, or some type of sheet that they fill out information about the book, so that the cover can be designed a certain way. But most authors do not get approval. You're usually a much more important author if you get approval on the cover design.
Wow! Yeah. So it truly is a collaborative process where you hand off parts of your vision to someone else who you trust to execute it right.
I'd say it's more like a benevolent dictatorship on part of the publisher, unless you are a big deal and have some weight. I don't know if you've ever seen the packaging of musicians.
Oh, absolutely.
Pop stars. I mean, the first persons or people I think of are Madonna from when I was younger, and currently Gaga, who, whether they cultivated themselves in the beginning or they were collaborated with by their record companies, that's a very specific and intentional creation. But who does it? Like I said, when you're an up-and-coming writer, you have very little to do with it. When you're a bigger deal writer, then you have more to do with it.
That's fascinating. I mean, it's very similar with fashion, with music, with art. There are influencers who set and design trends, and then they feed it and populate it out to the masses. So are there any new trends that are happening right now in the publishing world from a design perspective?
I don't know. I have to be honest. I don't get into bookstores much because we don't have any bookstores. I will tell you that there is I think there was a swing much more towards self-publishing, where people were like, I don't need the big publishers. I don't even need an agent. I'm just going to put this on the internet myself. And what happened is consumers got overwhelmed with stuff that wasn't ready to be read by a consumer, needed to be edited, or wasn't that good.
Yeah.
There's this sense, you know what it's like? People complain often about gatekeepers. I'm a gatekeeper. I prevent people from getting their work out if it's not good enough. It's sort of like if you designed your own sheets and you're like, oh, Bed Bath & Beyond doesn't like them, or Wamsutta, or whoever's the collection. I'm going to produce them myself. That's a lot harder to do than just say, throw your words on the internet. And I'd say ultimately, much of what you're talking about here is driven by technology. And as a result of the technological changes, we're seeing differences in design, just the fact that certain things can exist that wouldn't have existed before.
Yeah, and especially in design and in style, technology has really influenced the education that people have, because they have so much access now to information to inform their decisions, whether it's good or bad. You may have only had stores that were accessible to you in your local neighborhood or where your friends and family lived, but now you can shop stores that are in Hong Kong. You can get inspiration from Milan. You can have mid-century patterns like what you have behind you right now. You can just research so much now to be able to inform you, which has really changed it. So I love that we're talking about technology, because that's changed your world. And so are there specific design tips or style tips that someone who is looking to get into the digital world of publishing should know? That's very different than if it was a physical piece.
Well, I would say that, like any other aspect of art or product, you need to make sure that whatever you're putting out there is the best it can be. Now more than ever, because of technology, you have much more competition. So there's not just like 10 bands playing in New York. There's hundreds, thousands who are selling their music online all across the country, tens of thousands. Same with books. You have a tremendous amount of competition. And people seem to focus a lot more on packaging rather than on the quality of the product. So a great example would be, if you go to a high-end Fifth Avenue store and you pick up a pocketbook, it doesn't matter what the label is on it, really. When you open it, you know if it's well-made or not, because they can put a label on something made by cheap labor out of cheap products. Happens all the time. We have product piracy, especially in handbags, for instance. But when you pick up a real Louis Vuitton, you know the difference. When you pick up a real Prada bag, you know. And so I would say that's true for even a book. As you start to read a book that's sort of like just thrown together, or it's somebody's first draft and they put it on the internet, that's not how you want to be known, and you're not going to have success.
Exactly. Well, what I love about what you're referencing is substance. And substance is really the foundation for having a timeless style, timeless career, timeless product. So you spend the time up front to create something that is of value and that's detailed, and then it will last for a long time, whether it's being used by you or whether it's being used by other people or whether it's even just a reference point. And that's really the foundation to style. That's Style 101 is, instead of investing in trends, you want to go for the classics, because the classics are usually rooted in something that has a really strong substantive style to it.
Even people who poke fun at style or seek to do unusual things with style. I'm just thinking of Warhol. The imagery that he would use in his pieces, something like a Campbell soup can.
Absolutely.
That is so distinctive and so powerful an image. Jackie Kennedy, even, frankly, the electric chair. I have specific pieces in my head. I'm kind of an art fan. The powerful imagery is very specific and iconic, which is ironic, but it's not. He didn't pick things by accident to put in his pieces, and the same way great still life painters didn't pick things by accident. And I would argue that people who really love great books don't pick them for the most part by accident. Although we do get the happy accident when you discover something new. But let me ask you, when you're looking for something to read, don't you usually ask a friend, have you read anything good? Do you have a recommendation? Or do you just wing it when you go into looking for something to read?
I wing it. Personally, I need little guidance. I like to do my own research and bump around. So there's either usually a topic or a genre. There's an intent for me to purchase reading material. Unlike shopping, I don't need an intent. It's just because it's Tuesday. But no, I usually bop around and see what I find. Yeah. So question for you. You mentioned that you're an art fan. What are two of your favorite artists?
Chagall. I actually just was at the opera the other night with my wife Holly, and at the Metropolitan Opera, there are two very large tapestries by Marc Chagall.
Yes.
And they're beautiful, but he designed a lot of costumes, or he designed the costumes for the first production that they had at Lincoln Center. It is unbelievable. And I'm actually starting to study a little about him because my wife and I, every month we teach each other about an artist we like. We do research, we go to the museum, and we do that. I know. We have a lot of fun. We're married, and we're still dating each other, which is fantastic. So I love Chagall. I love Basquiat. For people who don't know who he is, he was a young, I don't even know if I would say African-American or Creole.
He was Creole.
Creole. Artist who was befriended by Andy Warhol. There's a great movie involving him. He was originally sort of a street artist, or a graffiti artist, if you will, but he did a lot of really interesting. See, I hate to use the word primitive because he did some amazing.
There were some primitive,
amazing,
yeah.
Right, but I saw some recent materials at the Brooklyn Museum. I live in Brooklyn because I guess that makes me really cool now. But
you're a cool Brooklyn guy.
I am. Thanks to my wife, believe me. But the work that he has is so impactful and emotional that I find that really fascinating. I appreciate technique, and clearly he had technique, but I more appreciate someone who's able to take something from inside of them and literally hand it to me and have me feel it. And I feel that that's something, and he and I have almost nothing in common. I mean, well, you know, he passed away. I can't remember if it was AIDS or some other, I know he had intravenous drug use problems and a lot of other issues, but we have very different backgrounds, but he's opened up his world to me, which is what I think part of what a great artist does.
Yeah, Eric, you are full of juxtapositions. Can I just tell you that? Like, full of it, from Chagall to Basquiat.
I've been told I'm full of it before, not the first.
From law to art, it's just like full of juxtapositions, which I love. So you mentioned your wife, Holly. And it seems like you guys are in an amazing relationship. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What has Holly taught you about style?
She has taught me to not just do what's comfortable. I'm wearing a pair of Allen Edmonds shoes. I like Allen Edmonds. He's a good maker, and they have really nice shoes. But they're blue. And I was like, you either wear black shoes or brown shoes, and that's it. I mean, I'm 55. I was a lawyer. I was a litigator. I've tried cases to the highest courts in the country. I'm not going to wear blue shoes, but I'm wearing blue shoes, and they look really cool. And so that's just a small example.
I love it. She's taught you to take some risk.
That's correct. And I would say it's not just limited to fashion.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then how would you describe your style then today, now that you're more of a risk taker?
Well, I don't know that I'd say I'm a risk taker, but I know what I'd like my style to be. I think that there's makers that I always liked, and I was sort of preppy when I went to college, or I tried to be to fit in. Wow, that's a hard one. Like today I'm wearing a t-shirt with a navy blazer. It's more relaxed in the office. I like to wear cufflinks. I have a cufflink collection. I like fun watches.
Oh, cool.
And, so like I knew I was going to be on today, so I wore one of my nicer watches. It's an Omega Constellation. But I think that men need to enjoy their accessories more. Mm-hmm. I read GQ, but I also read Vogue. I love fashion, actually. I think it's very much just another art form. But I'm getting all over the place. For my own personal style, I'm a sort of I like to mix things up. So I like to have jeans, but I like to wear a really nice button-down shirt with cufflinks and maybe a really cool tie. There are uniforms I have to wear. Like if I'm in court, because I still go to court, then I wear a very subdued, a dark suit with a respectable tie and shirt combination and keep it simple.
I like that you were talking about accessories because they really can transform someone's look, and it's a safe way or a comfortable way to take risk and be playful and introduce new trends. So what are your 3 accessories that you're so excited about right now, that you love, that are in your closet, or that you potentially want to buy?
Okay, scarves. My wife turned me on to scarves. We traveled through Europe, and it seems like every time we go to Europe, I get at least one scarf. So I was in Hamburg, and I got this cool green and purple scarf. Because men, for the most part, in our society, dress a lot more drably than women. And so I think, like I said, accessories let us branch out a little bit. So just scarves in general. I love cufflinks. I don't wear French cuff shirts as much as I used to, but I love cufflinks, and I love old cufflinks. Like my father left me some Art Deco, like white gold with star sapphire kind of things. They're just old school, but unusual. Mm-hmm. So I love that kind of stuff. I do love watches, and I don't think it's got to be the standard Rolex or other big name. I have a fun watch that my wife bought me from a company called Nixon.
Oh, yes.
Which is designed by surfers, and I'm not a surfer. We have a lot of fun, cool things there, and they're not outrageously expensive as watches go. I mean, I have an old Hamilton. Just depending on what you feel like putting on, and that something that's just a little different from the usual cookie cutter look.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm surprised. I thought you would have said your glasses.
You know, I would love to have more of a glasses collection. My wife picked these out. These are a famous name. Oh, crap, I can't read it now. Where are you? Paul Smith.
Paul Smith.
They're Paul Smith. But I have, one of the things I'm proudest of is I have a pair of these sort of green and stainless Ray-Ban Clubmasters that were, and I'm sure people who are watching this know what they are, but they're a kind of sunglass. I had them pop out the sunglasses and put in my prescription.
I love that.
So they're fun and unusual. They're bifocals, folks, 55 years old, but still.
No, it's very cool. I grew up, my dad wore aviators by Ray-Ban that were reading glasses.
Yeah, cool.
So, yeah, no, I love transforming sunglasses into reading glasses. So I have to ask you about your wallpaper behind you because I'm obsessed with it. Very cool. So first, did you choose the wallpaper? And if you did, so you didn't.
No, this is, I have space in this office, although this wallpaper helped seal the deal of me being here because we have a really funky vibe in my office. We have a lot of mid-century stuff, shared office space. So I dig that. I'm sorry.
Very cool. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And there's a lot of other style choices. The chairs, which you can't see. The fixtures, which I guess you can't see. And I'm afraid to move things around and make viewers sick. But I do love that mid-century vibe.
Well, I love it. So we round out all of our interviews with 20 questions, and they're 20 fun questions. It's rapid fire. There's no wrong answer. And I like to call it, it's a yin and yang. It gives our viewers insight into who you are. So you have to choose one or the other. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so penthouse or estate?
Penthouse.
Cake or cookie?
Cake.
Concert or musical?
Musical.
Twain or Hemingway?
Twain.
Bed and breakfast or resort?
Oh, you're killing me. Resort.
Okay. East Coast or West Coast?
East Coast. That's
an easy one, right? Breakfast or dinner?
I love breakfast for dinner, so I'm going to go breakfast.
Okay. Silver or gold?
Oh, gold.
Okay. Painting or photography?
Painting.
Ski or surf?
Neither. Skiing.
Okay. Wine or cocktail?
Cocktail.
Okay. Gucci or Vuitton?
Gucci.
Okay. Netflix or movie out?
Movie out. This is harder than you would think, by the way.
Exactly, yeah. You got to choose one. City or suburbs?
City.
Okay. Diamonds or pearls?
Diamonds.
London or Paris?
I've never been to Paris, I got to be honest with you, so I'm going to pick Paris because I just want to check it out. And my wife does speak French fluently. So
it's on the list.
I built in, yeah.
Call or text?
Call.
Okay. Andy Warhol or Keith Haring?
Oh, God, I can't. I'm picking Keith Haring. That career got shut down way too early.
Okay. So two more. Beyonce or Rihanna?
Beyonce. Don't come after me.
Yes.
Yeah. But Beyonce's got so much. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to explain. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then the last one for you, drum roll, is dine in or dine out?
dine in. Holly and I love to cook together.
Awesome.
And that's fun. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Eric, it has been a pleasure talking with you today.
Eric, it's my pleasure. It was really lovely to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well, too. So, viewers, please check out the Ruben Agency. Eric is amazing, super talented. And remember to stay stylish.